Hello and welcome back to another edition of Bike Profiles. This is a customer's bike. I didn't actually build it for him, but he's been bringing it here for service. This is a Time Fludity, and it's more of their endurance line of bikes, and customer believes it's from 2016. So we've got a Di2 group on here with a couple of mixed parts, not too dramatic. So let's get into this so I can show you what kind of setup he's got going on here. Okay, so first things first, it has Ultegra Di2 shifters, Ultegra rim brake, but then he's got a Dura-Ace crankset and a GS Ultegra rear derailleur. So a little bit of a mix, but not too bad. All right, so let's start from the front and work our way back. We have the Ultegra shifters, as I mentioned, but we also have this Timebar handlebar, and it's got a nice shape to it. I like right here where I can put my hand, even though this bike isn't set up for me. It just feels good. So time stem, time bar, and one thing, when I tried to wrap the bar tape, I was trying to figure out how to do it. So we have these logos here, and let me turn the camera around. We have these logos here, but right at the edge of where this T is, in other words, if I were to leave this T uncovered, then the internal cable routing ports that are underneath here would be exposed. So you can see this part right here, it comes out like right where, if I would leave the T uncovered and if I would leave the E uncovered. So unfortunately I have to cover it a little bit because I do want to cover where the internal cabling comes back out and makes the turn to the shifter. So anyway, just something that bugs me because I'd rather have the time logo fully exposed and fully represented. So one thing that you might not have noticed is that this is an integrated seat mast. Now these are not that popular with a lot of bike fitters. But you can see here comes the seat tube. It's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up. It doesn't stop here. There is no seat clamp, and then it just keeps going up to here. So you're gonna have to cut, whatever, maybe your seat post or something to get this in. Now, as I mentioned, I didn't actually sell him this bike, so I didn't have to do any of the fitting process. So shamefully, I don't know all of the process to do this here. So just be aware of that. Okay, so there's that. And as I mentioned, we've got Ultegra brakes front and rear. We've got this Dura-Ace crankset. Now, some of you who tune into the channel quite a bit will know that this is the bike that I did a worn chainring video on. So we now have a new Dura-Ace 50 big chain ring because he doesn't spend any time in the little ring, and the wear totally indicated that. So we have some corrosion on the front derailleur. Tried to get some of that off, but it just wouldn't come off unless I use something really abrasive. And what ends up happening is you may get that piece off, but then you're going to scrape off the coating or plating on the rest of the cage, so it's almost best to just leave that alone. We've got a new chain on it. We've also got a new cassette because the cassette just had so much corrosion on it that it was not worth the labor time to do the cleaning of it. As I mentioned, we have a GS, so we have a longer cage derailleur here, but he runs a 1225 cassette. He rides a lot in our coastal area. He lives a few blocks from the coast. That's why he's got a lot of corrosion. So he really doesn't need a climbing cassette. He's got that long cage, so I guess he has the flexibility if he wants to, but he says, I'm just done climbing and done suffering, so I really don't need it. But if he were to change his mind, then we can put a nice 1132 or 1134 cassette back here with this ample derailleur cage to be able to make that work for him. So I know that some of you have mentioned a lot about this. You know, he's lucky to be alive. He was hit by a car, and he's got, you know, he's got some pedaling scraping going on. He scrapes the back of his chainstay here as well. But, you know, the guy's just happy to be riding his bike. So we don't want to be too harsh on this gentleman. But yeah, this is a really nice time fluidity, or an example of a very nice time fluidity from about 2016. Now he's got a fulcrum rear wheel, but he's got a Campagnolo Ultra front wheel with ceramic bearings. So I need to find out what the story is between the front wheel and the rear wheel having different, just a different wheel altogether. So haven't had a chance to talk to him about that, but I'm sure I will today. So that's your front wheel, and then your rear wheel is just a standard fulcrum racing wheel. So maybe he damaged his wheel, maybe that was part of the car crash, but I think that car accident was with a different bike altogether. But okay, so that's all for today. Oh, we also replaced the brake cables and brake housing. So brake cables, brake housing, brake pads, new chain ring, new cassette, and cleaned the whole thing. Okay, that's all for today. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you up the road.